All right, we'll go ahead and get started. And I'm going to just a few more people coming in. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And I wanted to, first of all, just thank all of you for coming today to our September Voter Services Skills Training. Today we've got one more installment in a series that's getting everyone ready to be ready for the election. And we're going to start it off with a discussion about split ticket versus straight ticket voting. And then we're going to have Nikki and Roger Ellis will be doing that. And then we'll have Nikki Watkins from the Alabama Disabled Advocacy Program to talk about disability voting rights. And then Roger's going to step back in and talk about looking up your sample ballot and some other important information. So I'm just excited about this program, and we will stop at each point and have questions, just so that we'll spend a short time with questions after each section. And then at the end, we can come back with more general questions. So the questions at each section need to be related to the topic we talked about. And then at the end, we'll just open it up for anybody that's got more general questions. So I guess I'm going to hand it off to Roger. And just one sec, Roger. There we go. Roger, you take it away.
Okay.
I guess everybody, can you see the charts? Just a thumbs up if anybody.
You have your thing up on that.
Say that again.
You have a slide up on there.
Let's see. Hold on. Let me stop share. I don't think I'm sharing my screen. Yeah, I see your slide.
Okay.
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 Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining the Zoom meeting. My name is Roger Ellis, and I'm the Chairman of Voter Services for the League of Women Voters Tennessee Valley. And if you can, please hold your questions till the presentation is over, or write them down as we go along so we can ask later. So what we're going to be covering today on the agenda is, what is straight ticket voting? Do all states have straight ticket voting? What are the advantages of straight ticket voting? What are the disadvantages? What is the split ticket voting? What are the advantages of split ticket voting? The disadvantages of split ticket voting? Straight ticket voting to ballot, straight ticket voting to ballot, and the sample ballot for amendments. And how to look for your sample ballot. Where can I get a sample ballot? The 2024 election dates and deadlines, and have a voting plan, the summary, get in the game, and then questions. So what is a straight ticket voting? Straight ticket voting is a method of voting where voters use a single mark to vote for an entire slate of candidates on a ballot. Voters typically use straight ticket voting to vote all the candidates based on a specific political party. This method of voting is not available in all states. As of 2022, there are only 5 states that allow straight ticket voting. Alabama is one of them, Michigan, Kentucky, Oklahoma, and South Carolina. So what are the advantages of voting straight ticket? Well, the voter saves a lot of time to get in and get out of the polling place. There's less chance of spoiling the ballot because you don't have to make one mark. If a voter has been standing in line to vote, they don't have to take the time to vote for separate candidates on the down ballot. So what are the disadvantages of straight ticket? Voters are not taking the time to research candidates or their political platforms on the down ballot. Voters are not concerned about ballot initiatives or amendments. So what is straight ticket vote or split ticket voting? Split ticket voting is voting for more than one political party listed on the ballot. This gives a voter more of a choice. What are the disadvantages? The voter has to research the individual candidates and know their platform. The voter may know the candidates and will vote because they trust the candidate. A voter can pick who they think is the best candidate from each political party. So what are disadvantages? It will take longer for a voter to vote a split ticket depending on how many parties are on the ballot. So let's look at a ballot here. I'm going to show you how to do a straight ticket. As you can see, I mean, it says right here, straight party voting. So if you want to vote for a particular party, in this case, we have three, all you do is mark that little circle and give it to the poll watcher, and you're done. You're out of there. It's that quick. Now let's look at a split ticket. Now, split ticket, as you can see, we have these three parties. But if, say, I wanted to vote for the Alabama Republican Party, I can mark that circle, and every Republican candidate on this ballot would be included when they put the ballot in the machine. But also, what if somebody changed parties that they used to be Republican and switched to Democrat? So I want to vote for that person. So you can also mark that person. And also, you have candidates like the Madison County coroner. You know, he says he's a Republican, so if he's a Republican, he's using red stitches. Democrats use blue stitches. Or what if you know the sheriff and you like him, but you voted for Libertarian, but you can also mark it for a Republican sheriff. But it will take a lot longer to go through each candidate to see which party they belong to and look up some of their information. Now, for the amendments, you can see on this side, you see a lot of amendments on this particular ballot. When you get your ballot, always look on the back of it because that's where they put the amendments. And this is what's nice about having the sample ballot is you can review this and ask questions about it or get somebody trying to explain it to you. Well, how this is going to affect your county, your state or city. So it's pretty simple. You either vote a yes or a no on each of these. So how do they look for a sample ballot? A sample ballot provides a voter an idea of what will be on the actual ballot when they vote at their polling location. A voter can take a sample ballot into their polling location, but can't leave it there after they vote. Voters love sample ballots, especially if there is an amendment to the Alabama Constitution, and it helps them understand the amendment before they vote. Where can you get a sample ballot? Well, for a municipal election like we're having here in Huntsville, you can go to your Huntsville City election page, like this page here. You can see here it says sample ballot, and that's an example for the city election. Or you can go like we have the Madison County Registrar's Office. They also have that. You can click there and find the sample ballot. Or the Secretary of State has a website, has a place for that. So you can go here, go to the search and type in sample ballots. It'll take you to the page. And here, all he has right now is the leftover from the primaries. But here are all the sample ballots through all the counties. So when they get this update, you're going to see Democrat, Republican, and Libertarian on this page. So this is, and there it is. Just to click on the ballot, you can download these or whatever. Okay. election dates are coming up, and one important thing about the election dates, the cutoff for the presidential election is October 21st, and that's just around the corner. And what they do, they cut the election off, voter registration off 2 weeks because they're updating the voting rolls. Absentee voting began on September 11th, so it's like you can here. You can go to the registrar's office and go ahead and vote the absentee. The application mail delivery date is October 29th. Absentee application hand deliver is October 31st. Absentee ballot hand carry is November 05. And if you do a mail ballot, it has to be there by November 5th. Now, in Huntsville, I'm sure it's happening across the state. We're having big problems with the mail. And these people, what they call phishing, are breaking into mailboxes and taking the mail out of there, looking for checks and money and everything else. So if you drop that ballot in there, you might not get counted.
All right. So is this we can't hear that if you're, because the way we shared it. But so I'm thinking maybe we'll just stop right here. And I guess one thing I wanted to just mention was, right now, these deadlines are the same deadlines they had before the whole U.S. Postal Service got really snarled up and delays are late. You did not want to wait until October 29th to request an absentee ballot. That's a recipe for not having your vote count, because if it's not there in their hands by those deadlines, then your vote will not be counted. And you just people need to, if you're going to vote absentee, you need to go ahead and do it and not wait. And I guess just wanted to point that out, because right now there's even a letter that's come out to LaJoy telling him that the election officials are telling him that there's a real problem with the delivery, causing a whole lot of problems, and not just with delivery of the absentee ballot, but also just putting people on inactive rolls if they get misdelivered. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Roger, about the mail. So first of all, we had a question from Brian and then Joan, and this is related to only what we just talked about. So Brian and then Joan.
Yeah, just on that slide Roger's showing right now, there's a mistake, and this has been in a lot of literature, and I don't know where it's coming from, but on number 5, the absentee ballot must be received by noon on election day. The only exception would be under 6 on UOCAVA has longer time frames. And I've been seeing this on a lot of literature, and I don't know where it's coming from, if they're trying to cover everything in one slide. But if it's not,
it's on page 13 of the Alabama voting guide.
So if it's not received on that day, it's not counted, not postmarked, but received, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, we need to write that up. Well, Roger and Brian, when we get done, let's think about, we need to write a letter to the Secretary of State's office. All right. Joan, you're next.
Thank you. When you do the straight ballot, do you also have to do separately the amendments?
Well, it depends on the time you have. If you want to do a straight ballot, it's like I said, you can walk in there and
but none of the amendments will be marked?
Well, it depends on the voter.
I don't think that straight ticket applies to the ballot amendments, right?
Yeah, it's just voting for those particular parties. It's straight party voting.
So you would still have to vote separately for the amendments?
Well, if you were a straight party voter, yeah. I mean,
the answer is if you vote straight party and want to vote on the amendments, you have to do those separate. Correct.
All right. Another question I have is when if you filled out an absentee, request a ballot for the primary election, do
Mhm.
you have to apply again for the general election?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Roger, thank you. And you'll be right back when after Nikki's presentation. So
Okay.
I guess if you'll stop sharing, then Nikki, I think I need to see if you can share yours.
I think I can. Let me see if I can.
Well, he needs to stop share first. So that,
Oh, okay.
I think if you just, stop share. Yeah, there we go. That
Heard a
works.
dog. I'm sorry about that.
Nikki, can you introduce yourself to folks that don't know you? Let me change the spot.
Sorry.
Hold on just a minute.
yeah.
Let me pick you out of there you are. I'm going to spotlight you.
Hi. You get to look at me with my weird headphones. I share a home office with my husband. So I am Nikki Watkins, and I am the voting rights and outreach coordinator at ADAP. And a lot of what I do is voting rights work, obviously, in a bunch of different places around Alabama. Sometimes it's in institutions. Sometimes it's voting trainings around the state. Sometimes it's Zooms like this, right? And recently I did a training for the Madison County election workers. So I do a bunch of different stuff, all related to disability voting rights in particular, and the rights of disabled voters in Alabama. And that's basically what I'm going to talk about today. Can you all see this okay? Everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Good deal. Right, I will. So I'm not going to make everyone go crazy talking too much about the legal stuff. I work with a lot of attorneys who can help you in a bunch of different ways related to social work, Medicaid waivers, Medicaid, stuff like that. But we also do voting rights work. And if you ever need help filing a Help America Vote Act complaint, I'll talk about that in a little bit too. And you don't need an attorney for that. And that's something that I can help you with. But I want to give everyone an idea of the background of the law, just so you know. I want you to know your rights when you're going to your polling location, so you know if they're being violated and you know to stand up for yourself. That's mostly my goal here. So I think most people have heard of the Voting Rights Act, and we've talked about, all over. You hear things about Supreme Court, Voting Rights Act, right, and what it does and how it's affected Alabama in particular. Our recent congressional redistricting is kind of a highlight of this. But what the Voting Rights Act means for people with disabilities is that they have the right to have assistance when they two people can't help, your employer or your union representative. We don't really have a lot of unions in Alabama, but the reason your boss can't come help you vote is probably pretty obvious, right? You don't want to, be stuck feeling pressured to vote a certain way because your boss wants you to. Most Americans have heard of the ADA, right, and have some general idea of what it does, right? The Americans with Disabilities Act, for purposes of elections, just means that our elections have to be fully accessible. What that means in practice gets a little complicated. Talk a little bit more about that. My work in particular is funded by, we say HAVA, right, the Help America Vote Act. I've done a lot of work lately around voting machines. The express vote voting machine is what we use in Alabama. Now, it used to be Automark, if anybody has heard of that. And every polling place has to have a voting machine that voters can use. And these machines are pretty cool. They have a braille touchpad thing that you can use. They have a touch screen that you can also use to input your selections on your ballot. And then it'll print out a little piece of paper that just is the same shape as a ballot. And you take that to the machine and you're done, right? It also has headphones. So you can have text to speech and speech to text. And it has an option even for a straw attachment for people with certain kinds of disabilities that are not very mobile, or they maybe can't use their hands, and they can blow their selections into the straw. So it's a pretty cool device. One of the things I do at every voting training is I say to everyone, go use the voting machine at your polling location. You don't have to have a disability to use the polling location or to use the voting machine. It gives you an idea of if it's working at your polling location, if it's turned on, if you need any help with it, if the election worker knows how to use it, because they should know all of these things. Now, again, in practice, that doesn't always happen. And if it doesn't happen, I like to hear about it, because that way I know, okay, well, this particular precinct needs more help with training on these devices. And a lot of people with disabilities don't know about the voting machine either. One of the things I'm encouraging, and Madison County is doing this year, is actually putting up signs pointing to where the voting machines are, which I think will be helpful on that front too. So as just brief plug for the voting machine, go use it, try it out. In some ways, it's easier than filling out a ballot by hand. You can't make a mistake by selecting multiple things in one section in the same way that you could with a paper ballot, which is one of the reasons I kind of like it, right? It won't let you. It just won't let you submit it that way. So, and that's an easy thing for people to do. Okay, this might be a little tiny because it's a lot of text and you don't have to worry too much about the text. But I wanted to talk a little bit about physical accessibility of polling locations. Most of the ADA talks about physical access, right? So like the width of doorways, the type of door handles to use, parking is a big one, right? Ramps, sidewalks, the texture of the road, that kind of thing. If you ever want to learn more about it, I put a link here from the Department of Justice and the ADA's voting rights checklist. About 16 pages, it's long, right? And it's got a lot of information on what precincts can do relatively cheaply to deal with inaccessibility issues, right? Like putting pads down for uneven road or renting a ramp, marking off parking with cones, that kind of stuff. The ADA almost solely deals with these physical aspects of inaccessibility, like obscuring walkways, that kind of thing. You're not going to get a lot out of the ADA in terms of sensory disabilities or intellectual and developmental disabilities. This is really about the physical accessibility of the polling location. It doesn't talk very much about making sure that people with disabilities feel integrated into the environment either. One of the things I usually ask groups too is if, you have this voting machine and you have this accessible entrance and you've done everything else right, but if you throw the voting machine on the far opposite end of the room, away from everyone else who is voting, that's not a very integrated environment. That's isolating for the person with the disability. So trying to navigate, overcoming the barriers to access, but also making sure that people with disabilities feel like they're in the community with their neighbors when they go vote is important. My favorite one is disabled and elderly voters can hop the line. A lot of the time when this comes up on Alabama media, they just talk about people over 70 being able to hop the line. But it is also if you have a disability and you struggle to stand, you can ask for a chair. You can ask to be moved to the front of the line. If you're at the front of the line for a while, which probably isn't going to happen in Alabama, but just in case, you can ask to be seated. And one of the things I tell election workers is that not everybody's disabilities are visible. Right? I sometimes use a wheelchair. I sometimes don't. And when I'm not using the wheelchair, you can't really tell that I have a physical disability. I'm an amputee. So, they have no way of knowing if someone has a disability or not. They should not ever, under any circumstances, ask you what your disability is. If you want to use the voting machine, they should not ask you why. If they do, you should absolutely tell them that they do not have the right to ask these questions. And then I still want to know about it because they're not supposed to be doing that. And if they are doing that, I can't be in every polling location. I'd like to be able to hear if that's happening. They are never supposed to ask you what your disability is or why you need to use the voting machine. They should not find a roundabout way of asking you what your disability is, right? Like, why do you have trouble standing or that kind of thing, right? They should just move you to the front of the line or get you a chair. I'm only going to touch on this briefly because I've never seen it come up in real life, but we do have technically a time limit in the voting booth. If you are in the voting booth for longer than 4 minutes, a poll worker can legally ask the person if they need help, and you can ask for more time. And I mention that just because, especially if you're helping someone vote, or if someone is helping you vote, it can take a little extra time. Also, some of those amendments take a while to get through, right? Maybe you have to do a little bit of research or try to figure something out. So you can ask for more time. I've never seen it happen where anybody has ever needed to actually ask this question, but just so you know. Most of y'all probably know this one, but what do you do if you get in line at 6:59 p.m. and the poll worker is like, nope, you got to go because we're closing? You wait, right? You are, as long as you are in line before 7 p.m., you wait and you vote. You make a mistake on your ballot, you can ask for a new ballot. That's, again, one of the reasons why I like the voting machine is you can't make a mistake on your ballot, right? Like it gives you, at the end, you get a readout of all of your answers on the screen, and you get to, see what you picked and go back and change things if you need to. If you run into a situation where you get to your polling location and they can't find you and they don't tell you where you're supposed to be voting, maybe you've moved and you didn't update your address and they can't find you and they can't figure out what to do, stick around and cast a provisional ballot. It may be counted, it may not be, but it's better than not voting at all. I always tell people to stick around and do that. Couple things that I think are really important, especially if you're helping someone vote, like a family member or a friend, or if someone is helping you, right? Nobody can tell you that, oh, you're not mentally with it enough to vote. Nobody can say that to anybody else, right? Nobody can make that decision except for a judge in a court, very much outside of the polling location. And I may not like the way this is done in Alabama, but the legal language is mentally incompetent, right? So a person cannot declare another person mentally incompetent. If they are registered to vote, they can vote. And that's the end of it. The example I give people a lot is my grandmother did not vote for Bill Clinton because she didn't like his accent. And I don't necessarily think that's a good reason to not vote for someone or to vote for someone, regardless of your opinions about President Clinton, but it was her choice, right? She had the right to do that. People vote for all kinds of what I would call, bad reasons, right? Or they like a candidate for what I would call the wrong reasons, but they still have the right to do that. And I just want to make sure that everyone recognizes this has to be extended to disabled voters too, right? So you can't assume that someone doesn't know enough about the candidate, because if they don't know anything at all about the candidates, they still have the right to vote as long as they're a registered voter. I mean, plenty of people don't do as much research as maybe we all would like them to, right? But they have that right. So it is important to remember this. If you have a disability, you can you can receive voting assistance from a person of your choice. Again, except for boss, union representative. If you are blind in Alabama, we do not have a Braille ballot at all in Alabama. It does not exist. So you have to have a person assisting you, or you can use the voting machine. Most likely you will have a person assisting you, which automatically means that blind voters have a layer of privacy removed from their vote. So I point that out just to say the voting machine is a good option there, but we don't have any other options for blind voters, or people who struggle to read the ballot, so also low vision. Harping on the voting machine here in particular, and the reason I want everyone to use it, and the reason I mentioned this, is that election workers should know how to talk someone through casting a ballot on the voting machine. Voting machine should be on. They should have information about the attachments for the express vote voting machine, and they should know what is needed to complete, print, and turn in a ballot. This is not always true in practice. The complaint I receive the most in my job is from people who go to their precinct and the voting machine is turned off, or it's in a closet, or it's in a box, and then the election worker doesn't know how to turn it on. And then they have to call the county election manager and they have to send someone over, and it becomes this extremely extensive process. And even if the voting machine is not on, it takes about 10 minutes to boot up, right? It's not like a modern computer where it's really fast, right? So the reason I encourage people to use the voting machine, even if they don't need to, is to get a sense of which locations are having these issues. Because one of the things I hear a lot from counties around the state is, oh, well, nobody uses this. And it's sort of a chicken or egg problem, right? Is nobody using this because they don't know it exists, because a lot of the time it isn't on, or is it, just because nobody wants to? And it's hard to get an answer to that question without actually making sure that they are working in each polling location. Some of this is probably common sense. I'm sure it is to y'all, but I like to emphasize it here and everywhere, that people with disabilities deserve respect and dignity. That people with disabilities come from all demographics, all shapes and sizes, all colors, all ages, right? And every single one of us here, and really every single human on the planet, will at some point deal with their body not working like they hope it would, right? So we are all in this human boat together. And I just encourage people to remember that people may not always behave or act or sound or look like you'd expect them to, but that people with disabilities have just as much right to be in the polling location as you do, right? Or if you are disabled, make sure to be aware of your rights in the polling location, and don't let anybody try to revoke those rights in any way, right? Rights are rights for a reason. It is not a privilege. So, and voting is a right. I'm pretty sure everyone here believes that, but just bear in mind, this is also true for the disabled population. I think that's about it from me with the basics I wanted to run through. If you want any more information too, or more detailed information on some of the accessibility questions, or on maybe a little bit more information on the law in Alabama or federal law as it relates to voting with a disability, I'm happy to provide some resources on that front too. I have a voter guide for disabled voters, and just a little one-pager kind of flyer information on where to go to find information about the ADA, about the Help America Vote Act, and about how to file a complaint if you run into an issue at your polling location. Yeah, any questions from folks? Let me get out of this PowerPoint and I can look and see if there's any questions in chat.
So we are doing questions right now, everyone related to the topic we just talked about, disability voting rights. And so if you've got any questions or observations, this is a good time related to disability, people voting rights for people with disabilities or express vote.
I can't get my hand to go up, but I have a.
Okay.
No worries.
Joan, you go for it.
I have been a poll worker, and I have seen them not open the box where the machine is. I have seen them, I have sent someone over to use the machine, and apparently no one knew how to work it. And so I intend to cast my ballot on the machine this next time, so I will know how to work it.
Good deal. I really like it. I just did a demo down in Montgomery during the disability conference, and we filmed it. And I'm hoping to use some clips for it for YouTube and stuff too, but it really is easy. It's not, even if you're not super comfortable with technology, it's the print is big. It's not particularly difficult to use. It kind of reminds me of like an ATM machine, right? I mean, it's got simple instructions. It's not super complicated, but I think people are afraid of it because they're like, oh, I'm not supposed to use that. And everyone is supposed to use that. Please use it.
Thank you.
Joan, I want to say that the video, I dropped the link into the chat. When we did the public testing of the voting equipment, which is done in every single county, we got our probate judge to allow us to video Jenny Lux doing the demo of voting on the express vote. And I used that as that was the first time I'd seen it being used. And I used what I learned from that video, and I went and voted with the express vote. And I vote with it every time. And the first time I went to the polling place, the machine was unplugged. The next time it was turned off. Finally, they got it up and running, but they really, it's just an object lesson of all the things that Nikki was talking about. It's every time you use it, then you get them to behave a little bit more. It's like,
Yes.
all right, Gwendolyn.
Yes, my question was I wanted to, and I learned so much information from you, Nikki. Thank you. Do
Sure.
all voting places, location have access to the express voting machine? I'm thinking of many of the patients I had in the rural areas that were disabled. I'm not sure if they had it. That's why I wanted to do all voting polling locations have access to it. Yes, thank you.
Yes, yeah. Every precinct has access to at least one. Some of them have two. If you're talking about, if it's not a polling location, like if it's, say, an institution where a lot of people might be voting absentee, like a nursing home or something like that, they won't have it then. But every polling location that's a polling site, like one that you'd go to on election day, every county, every precinct has one. If they don't, I want to hear about that too.
I was in Dallas County recently, and a colleague of mine called the probate judge while we were sitting right there and asked them if they had it. And they confirmed that, yes, they did. And he had never seen it in the polling places. So I think, it's sort of like you walk in and you do what you got to do and you leave. It's like everybody needs to stop, like wiggling on, if we could get everybody just to take note, if they don't even use it, at least take note and see if there is one. I really appreciate this conversation, Nikki.
I can tell you too, it is isolated. It is off to the side. They said so nobody can see what you're voting, but that's not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
We do not have voting booth here. We have tables with dividers on them, but as far as I know, no one is ever told they didn't have, their time was up. And it's not timed.
I've never heard of it happening, but one of the reasons I ended up putting it in there too is especially for people with disabilities who might have a helper person, or especially intellectual disabilities who might need someone to come with them and help them go through their ballot. That can take some time. I've never heard of it happening. I don't think there's a whole lot of reason for it to happen in Alabama, because it's not like this is, sometimes during elections you'll see on the news and there'll be 4-hour lines in certain locations too, and in particular, especially Black precincts, which is, we can talk about voter suppression for hours another time. But Alabama's population is lower in general, and it just doesn't come up as much. I have seen some lines in Birmingham, but nothing like many hours worth of lines.
All right, Adelaide.
One of the things I did not hear touched upon in this presentation was SB1 and what's going on with it.
Well, the thing about SB1, so there's active litigation. The League of Women Voters is part of it. Alabama Disabilities Advocacy Program is also part of it. And as far as it relates to at least my work in particular, at the moment, I cannot help people with absentee applications or absentee ballot applications. I can point you to what the law says, and I think it will clarify why there is litigation about it. But as it stands, helping someone with their absentee ballot application or taking payment in some way, that is vague in terms of the way that works in the legal language, right? It doesn't specify what kind of payment or from what. To help someone with an application it can be a misdemeanor or a felony, depending. Which basically means my entire job involving helping people with absentee ballot applications, I can't do right now. So all I can really point you to is the fact that there are ongoing lawsuits and it's working its way through the courts, and we'll see what we see, I suppose, when it comes of it. But it has made it much more difficult for people to vote absentee in Alabama, particularly if they need assistance in some way. Watch out for, as the next legislative session comes around in Alabama, there are some pre-filed bills out there to try to clarify the language from SB1 to make it easier for people with disabilities to designate a person to help them with their absentee applications and their absentee ballots. But we won't know where that goes for a bit.
Has filed one of those bills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
that was the one I was talking about. But I know she also tried to file it last year too, but it was at the tail end of session and it didn't really get a chance to go anywhere.
so,
This is actually the third year she's filed it.
Oh, it's the third year. Okay.
Yeah. And so HB 31, the
Mhm.
league is planning to push it really hard starting this fall because we see that as we see that as already a situation that Alabama was not complying with federal law already. And that's unrelated to SB1 because if you look at the text that's changed in that bill, you can see that it didn't touch the part of the law that related to SB1. So it's a bill that is critical for people who might otherwise not be able to vote. I did want to mention, Adelaide, there are some, we're still pushing for an injunction against against SB1, but right now, unfortunately, absentee voting's already started. So it's kind of the benefit is going to be limited because of the fact that, we would have been working with people 2 months ago to get their absentee ballot applications in so that they could be ready to vote absentee. But that's one of the reasons that we're really focusing on, people knowing what to do when they go to vote so that they can vote independently. But absentee voting is just one more piece of of what people have a right to be able to vote. If they can't make it to the polling place, then they have a right to vote. But you can vote absentee in person, and that's another option. And when I had someone point out, it's really important to go when they have the public testing of the voting equipment. They do that every election, about a week or a week and a half before the election. They have public demos of all the election equipment, including the express vote. So, what Nikki was talking about, I would encourage everyone to call their probate judge and ask them, when is your public test? And then go down there and actually ask them to demo it, and if they'll let you use it, because here in Madison County, they'll actually give you a ballot and you can go in and mark it yourself. I think some counties like Mobile won't let you touch anything. But anyway, and I hope, Adelie, I know we're not answering your question to the level that, it's just basically we're still waiting to find out what's happening in the courts.
Kathy, I read something yesterday on the internet that a judge had nullified the part about not being paid or having giving financial for delivering your vote, your absentee ballot, or for helping with your absentee ballot.
So what, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'm trying to give you my not lawyer understanding of what I read and what I've been told is that there were several charges that the plaintiffs put a lot of different claims in the lawsuit because they were impacting a lot of different aspects of voting absentee. And the judge, when the state went in and put a motion to dismiss, and asked the judge to dismiss the whole case. And the plaintiffs, our attorneys, said, here's why we think you should not dismiss this case. And what ended up happening is all of the charges were dismissed except for the Voting Rights Act, and that's the Section 208. So what that means is they kind of crystallized the lawsuit now into a Voting Rights Act lawsuit. And that's not bad. It's all the problems are still there. It's still the same problem. We still can't help people with absentee ballot applications. But instead of having all these various problems hitting on different parts of the law, then we're focusing it now on a Section 208 Voting Rights Act claim. And so it's still, the payment, he didn't nullify, it's still a federal crime. It's still a felony if you help people and you get if you're a paid person, if you're paid for, and then you come out and help someone, then you're at risk of being charged with a felony. And that's still in the law. He didn't nullify the law. It's just that he narrowed down what the lawsuit was about.
Thank you.
Okay. Nikki, I sure appreciate your coming on today.
Of course. No, I'm glad I got to.
The more times we hear this, the more I start locking it in. So I appreciate it.
Anytime.
All right. And if you can stick around, then at the end, people may have other questions, but I'm going to hand it back to Roger, wherever he got. There he is. Okay. Hold on. I'm trying to find the. All right. Hold on. Spotlight. Okay. Go for it.
Okay, so we talked about the dates. Get ready to see that?
I think so. Dates.
Okay. So we also need to come up with a voting plan. And this helps pretty much when you get out of bed to go vote. First of all, you need to know your polling location. And you can find out by looking up your voter information and find out if you're an active voter. And do you have a ride to your polling place? Do you have the correct voter ID that's been approved to vote? And do I know the candidates I want to vote for? And what time do the polls open and close? So in summary, we talked about the straight ticket voting, what states have straight ticket, what the advantages and disadvantages of straight ticket. We talked about the split ticket voting, the advantages and disadvantages of split ticket. We saw the ballots for that. We used ballots for the amendments, how you can get a sample ballot, the dates, and have a voting plan. So the thing is, too, I hear this all the time. Our vote didn't count because it won't make a difference. And I've been hearing lately, I'm not going to register to vote because I don't want to get called to court. I don't want jury duty. This is what this is about. And like we just had in Huntsville, we just had a municipal election that had a 7% turnout. And these are the people that you complain to about your roads not being paved, the crime, your sewage and everything. And they turn around and only 7% show up. Voting is a two-part process. First part's registering. The second part is getting out the vote. And now the next session is going to be in October 14th. We'll be talking about the voting plan, what you expect arriving at the polling place, and who do you call if you have a bad experience at the voting place. You call Ghostbusters. See a little ghost right there? So thank you, everybody. Any more questions? Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Roger. I appreciate this has become a real centerpiece of our ability to try to get people ready to help people, but also for voters to start knowing more about, some of the things you'll experience. And I see, Scotty, you got your hand up. So.
Yes, I should know this, but I'm confused because it's been so much back and forth. Now her mom is bedridden, totally bedridden. And she wanted to know, what process does she need to take in order to do that?
So I had trouble hearing, Scotty, the first part of that. You said somebody's mom was bedridden, but I wasn't sure. Is it you're wanting to know about absentee voting? Or what? I'm sorry.
Yes,
okay.
That's my question. She wants to know how does she, or what procedures does she need to follow to, do an absentee ballot for her mom?
Well, since she's related to her, she can get an absentee ballot application for her.
Okay.
So she can either download it at the Secretary of State site or the probate site, and she can help her fill it out. but she would have to sign as a witness.
Okay. So she needs to
Since
sign
she-
as a witness.
Right, but since she's related to her, she can help her.
She can be the witness.
Right,
Okay.
She doesn't
And-
have to get somebody else to witness it.
right. But
Be
do
Okay,
one-
say that again. I'm sorry. Say that
One of-
again.
You've got to have two. Well, your absentee, you're talking about for the absentee ballot
Application.
application. If she doesn't
Right.
fill it out herself, then you need a witness.
Right,
Okay. Okay.
But if for the ballot itself, you need two witnesses, right?
you're right. You'll get an affidavit, the ballot, a secret envelope, and then the envelope to mail it in. And you have to get those in correct order when you mail it.
And you have to pay, you have to go to the post office and pay because it's beyond the normal weight.
Right, it's almost like $3. See, I call that poll tax, but
Yeah. This
That's
is
me.
Scotty, this is a prime example of why the bill that HB 31 needs to pass, because
Mhm.
if she were able to carry her mom's ballot and just hand it sealed in the envelope to the circuit clerk, then there would be no postage. But as it is, she can't do that. They won't take it from her.
Okay.
No, but she can do everything and then put some stamps on it and mail it. What is it, about $2.40 something, or almost $3 of postage
Yeah.
now?
but you have to make sure she's a registered voter. You have to look up her voter information.
Okay.
But
Okay,
she
Sure
let me-
she's active.
Let me just do a quick recap. So she needs to go to the Secretary of State's website, download the application for absentee ballot
For her county.
for her county.
County.
Then she'll send that, or she'll complete that, and then they will send her the absentee ballot.
Yes,
Okay, they'll send her the ballot, but once it's completed, okay, she needs to sign. Her mom can sign. She needs to sign, and her mom signs, and then she can be a witness. Is that correct?
well, you'll need two witnesses.
for
Okay,
the-
she'll need
for
two
the ballot.
witnesses. Okay, that's fine.
And the
But
affidavit.
she needs to take it to the post office. She cannot hand deliver it to the circuit clerk's office.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I just
But
don't.
like I say, make sure she's registered to vote and she's
Right.
active.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that.
Scotty, I just dropped the link to all the different county absentee
Okay.
ballot application websites.
Okay, thank
For
you.
the download.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Scotty, for that. Thank you for the question. All right. Any other questions?
Well, I think I have one.
Okay. Ann Carnes.
Jane Barnes, yes. Yes, let's see, this last week, I helped at Prodigy Pantry registering voters. And I did my first one that's trying to reclaim voting rights. And the situation was that 20 years ago, she served 3 years for holding drugs for someone. And for 20 years, she's been paying off her fines, and she was in prison 3 years. And so it looked to me like, because I looked on that chart that we've been given, and on the last one, it said the only drug crime that's still considered a felony is the trafficking. So it looked like, so I got her to fill out the application for renewing voter registration as well as the voter's registration. And I got to thinking, I wish that I'd gotten her name because I want to know if she was granted that. And then one of my fellow leaguers said, no, you wouldn't want to do that because that might be infringing, or of course I would do it with permission, but I just wondered about that. I didn't do it. I don't have her name or anything, but can you speak on that? What if I'd ask for her name?
There's nothing wrong with asking someone if they want you to follow back up.
Follow up. Okay.
And as a matter of fact, for rights restoration, it's really important for us to be able to connect back with anyone that we have questions about.
See, that's what I thought.
But I also will say, what I did one last night, and with Roger, I was at an event with Roger out at the music festival. And when I went through and he told me what his conviction was and, what it was, and he knew exactly what his conviction was. And what he told me was not a disqualifying conviction. So
Okay.
you can go straight to register to vote. But what I did, because it wasn't, sometimes it's really kind of uncomfortable trying to get someone to help you, let you fill out all this information about them.
Exactly.
But what you can do, what I did, I handed him our little card and I circled the phone number and I said, if you get denied, you reach back to us on this text number and then we'll help you. And so I put it back on that person. But if there's any question at all about someone being disqualified, then you absolutely want to let someone who has out-of-court access look up their record. But that would give you, by giving him a way to reach back to you, if you've given him anything with your phone number on it, then the leagues, if you have are you in Baldwin County?
Yes, Baldwin.
Okay. Yeah, if they've got your phone number, they'll reach back to you. And then at that point, you can bring in others to help figure out why.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Scotty?
Yeah, I was just going to share here at Greater Birmingham. I know Dana and Julie Reese are our two, I want to call them experts on VRR. And what they've said to me is that they actually go through the entire process with that person. So, if something comes up, they'll know it and they'll be able to help them, immediately or, give them directions. So in answer to your question, I would say yes, it's okay to get that information from that person because that's what the ladies here do. They go through the entire process with that person so that they know in the end, okay, now I can go vote for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. And Scotty, what you were just saying also, if there is any doubt at all that there's something else on their record, and what Scotty's getting at is we need to be able to follow back up because HB 100, which passed this past legislative session, increased the number of disqualifying convictions from, I think it's like 40 something to over, 120, Brian? It's like 120, 130. After November 5th, there's going to be a whole bunch more moral turpitudes, and we need to be able to reach back out to people if they have any questions. But the fact is, if you absolutely know that they didn't have a disqualifying conviction, sometimes it's not easy it's not convenient to, it's not conducive to getting their information, but if at all possible, you ought to get their name and phone number so that you can follow back up with them. Brian, did you want to add something to that?
Just the HB 100, it more than tripled the number of disqualifying felonies because it made conspiracy, attempting, or soliciting all the crimes. So that's 3 times. Plus, it added some new ones. So yeah, it more than tripled. The one example was talked about earlier. I just want to make clear: if they don't have a disqualifying felony, they just need to register to vote. If they do have a disqualifying felony and require it served, you have to go and get the serve first, and then they have to take the serve to the board of registrars to get registered. So it's kind of, if you have a disqualifying felony, and like I say, I can't remember, but we're probably too close to the election that if someone applied today, they have 44 days to provide the serve, and I think we'd be inside the registration went right then. So anybody, I would not do it, but it's going to be a tight window now if someone needs a serve to get them registered for this election.
Well, after the election, we'll do another voter skills training just to update people about the changes to the law. But this HB 100 that passed during the 2024 legislative session has really messed up a lot of people's lives. And people who have gotten their voting rights back, this is gonna cause everybody a lot of angst and maybe even people's voting rights. So, but we're not right now. We just need to make sure that if there's any question at all that they're okay to vote this year, maybe if they got anything, we need to we need to start keeping a really good, we need to connect with people who need their rights restored. But Ann, I think you did the right thing by getting them registered to vote. It's just a matter of making sure you can connect back to them, make sure they either send you a note to say, hey, I got my voting card, or you call them and
Yes.
ask them.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you so much. That clarifies a lot.
Thank you. Roger, did you have something to add on that? I noticed you're on, I guess I've got you pinned. Let's take you off pinned.
No, I was just listening. Yeah, I was just listening.
Yeah. Sorry, I was misinterpreting where I'd spotlighted you. It looked different. But all right. So I wanted to point out on the next session in October, I've invited a spokesperson from the Alabama Election Protection Network is going to talk about that last topic about who do you call. They've got actually this year, there's a panel of lawyers that are going to be on standby waiting to get phone calls from here in Alabama if there are any problems that happen. And so we want to really make sure that people across the state understand that there is going to be help. I mean, these lawyers will be there to help deal with problems that happen. And I think that's really going to help us within Alabama. Because right now, if you go to the Secretary of State's website, all you see is voter fraud phone number. You don't see what happens if you got basically a problem with what happened at the polling place. So although Brian pointed out, I guess there is a complaint form at the polling place, but I guess in October, we'll talk about maybe both of those so that you'll be able to, you can file a complaint, then you can go outside and make a phone call. So if there's a problem, if there's a good thing, maybe we probably ought to tell them thank you, because poll workers have really got a tough job this year. All right. I think we're done unless there's more questions.